You are in Nepal at this historic phase. We are writing our constitution after Nepal becoming a republic. What do you suggest that we should not miss out in the new constitution so that we prevent any future conflict from happening, the one like we suffered from for almost a decade?
I mean, there are many wise people in the Constituent Assembly, and I think Nepal has got some of the best brains in the world. So, I mean, I don't think it's for outsiders to say what needs to be done.
Since you have the experience of working in several conflict countries.
Certainly from our point of view, one of the important things, I mean, first of all, I think it's really important that there needs to be a political resolution to the challenges which Nepal is facing today, and the parties have to come together and find a solution to the current difficulties that have come up in the last few months, because our hope was that once we have the new government in place, the new Constituent Assembly, the new Parliament, the nation can focus now on meeting the needs of the poor and of the masses and the Millennium Development Goals. But the time is passing and we're still dealing with all of these political uncertainties. So, I mean, either we say that while we resolve these issues, we still have a very sharp focus on the goals and on the needs of basic rights of people. So, in the Constitution, which is the question you asked me, I think the basic Millennium Development Goal type issues, water, health, education, livelihoods, these should not be based on the whims and fancies of the elected government of the time. These need to be enshrined in the Constitution as fundamental rights, as has been done in South Africa, as has been done in many other countries. If economic, social, cultural rights are enshrined as fundamental rights, as fundamental as civil and political rights, then you know that this is a constitution which belongs to the majority of the Nepali population and not just the few people who control the power. Because even though we've seen all these changes, there is a real nervousness that basically it's the same actors. They've now put on new hats and new labels, and we have to go beyond that and take it to the ordinary people, to the poorest citizens in this country.
When we talk of citizen involvement in developing countries, normally it's the youth population that is of higher percentage. How can youths, the next generation, find their role in successful achievement of MDG?
It's very interesting because we've been really thinking hard about this question, and I don't know if you're aware, one of the initiatives we launched 3 years ago was something called Stand Up. And we improved on it. The first year it was called Stand Up, and we had in the first year 23 million people taking part. Second year we called it Stand Up and Speak Out, and last year it was called Stand Up and Take Action. So stand up and take action against poverty, stand up and take action for the Millennium Development Goals. So last year we had 116 million people take part across the world, and most of them are young people. And we tied up with the Guinness Book of World Records to give it a buzz, so we are shattering a world record every year. The largest single social movement on poverty in the history of the Guinness Book of World Records. Mostly young people who want to do something about it. So last year, and it's done over a space of 3 days, in the space of 3 days last year we had 10 million trees planted by mostly young people in just this part of the world. But it's not just planting trees, but also asking the government, what are you doing about your forestry policy? So this year we'll be doing it from October 16 to 18, because 16th is the World Food Day, 17th is the World Poverty Day. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I hope that your viewers will join us in big numbers. So that's one part. But the second part which we're thinking of really is about having youth MDG monitors at the community level, whether it's a village or a slum, where people can locally monitor to what extent these services which are supposed to be reaching them are actually reaching them. So there's a strong potential for young people to become local MDG monitors, and we're working on this and we'll announce something about this shortly.
Has there been any initiative of putting this into the curriculum of schools and colleges?
Oh yeah. In many places, where, again, it depends on the government, where the government is serious about it. In many countries, they have included it in the curriculum as well. But, the curriculum part, etc., will increase awareness on these goals. But for us, it's not just awareness, but people have to take action.
Nepal is rich in its natural resources and water, and also holds great prospects for tourism and agriculture. Yet poverty is very distinct in Nepal. In your opinion, what could be that one thing with which Nepal can alleviate from its poverty level?
Well, Nepal is, I've always been quite amazed that in spite of the conflict and civil war, etc., we've seen over the last decade, it's done reasonably well on the Millennium Development Goals, and according to official figures, Nepal is on target to achieving several of the goals, including the income goals, many of the health goals, and with some additional effort, they can also achieve the education goal, and so we are actually on track on many of the goals. One area where they're facing very big challenges are on hunger and child malnutrition, where Nepal has very high rates of child malnutrition. And I think also in the case of women's rights, I think there's a lot more to be done in the case of Nepal. Now, in terms of the magic bullet which you're looking for, which is going to change everything, I think the magic bullet really is how government can work with people. Because we have although we have a new government, new people there, etc., the gap, the distance between citizens and the state is still far too much. So we have to find a way of bridging that gap. And one concrete way in which I was talking about earlier is to find a way of tracking delivery on the ground. And I think you'll really get the truth from citizens who are the ones who are depending on these services.
Sooner or later, global water crisis will be a serious issue that the world will have to deal with. For someone who has dealt with climate change issues, now you're dealing with global food crisis. How prepared are you to deal with this upcoming global water crisis?
Well, I think the global water crisis is not something of the future. We are already having to deal with it. And I don't separate these crises, as I said earlier. To me, the water crisis is very closely linked to the climate and environmental crisis. We don't even talk about climate, we talk about environment. And the reason why we're in this situation is, because we take these things for granted. We assume that this is an unlimited natural resource. Now, that's not the case. We know that very well. And we have to find ways of managing both our land and water resources in an integrated manner. And I think Nepal and South Asia, we have a lot of work to do in this regard. And in fact, a lot of these problems cross national boundaries. As you know, we have a very integrated, interlinked ecosystem in South Asia. And some of the resolution for this problem will have to be found across national barriers. And particularly, you know very well the Kosi River situation, which goes across two countries. If you take the Ganges water situation between Bangladesh and India, we have the same situation. We can't deal with it looking at narrow national boundaries. So, and this is linked. If you connect this with the rate at which ice caps are melting, and the way the Himalayas are being made much more vulnerable with climate change, if we take a narrow approach, we're not going to find solutions. So we have to take an integrated approach which cuts across national barriers. And the second piece, we go back to what I said earlier. The solution for dealing with improved land and water management is not by having a fantastic plan created by the best scientists in South Asia. We need that, but ultimately it's the people who are going to implement these plans. So if you're not involving the people who are living in these places from the beginning, if they don't feel a part of the achievement of this plan, just like if they don't feel a part of achieving the Millennium Development Goals, the goals will never be achieved. So we need, once again, multi-stakeholder. I'm a bit nervous to use these words because they've been abused so much, multi-stakeholder, partnership, etc. But we need a collective solution to a collective problem.
Let us hope that the United Nations is successful in dealing with and in solving all these global issues that we discussed. With this hope, I wish you good luck and goodbye. See you next week, the same time. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being on the show, Shetty. And as a culture of the show, we have a